I'm Gene Delasala with Audioholics, and we are live right now. We're going to be unboxing the brand new Marantz SR8012 flagship 11.2 channel Atmos DTS-X Auro 3D immersive surround sound receiver. So we're going to be taking it out of the box, showing you what it's all about, and we're going to be doing a setup video and everything else after the fact, but we're just going to do a little tease right now for you guys. So while I'm opening the box, why don't you tell us where you're watching us from, and let us know what receivers are you using right now, and if you're planning to do any upgrades in the near future. So let's get this going. Some people might notice I've already cut the tape because I did do a quick unboxing on our Facebook channel yesterday. So we're basically going to do something similar today, maybe cover some stuff we didn't cover the other day. So here we are when you open the box. Here's all your accessories. If you have any questions while we're doing this, please.
Yes, we have Clinton Lyon from Indiana saying hello.
How you doing, Clinton? So the Marantz control is pretty basic. It does have a little backlight when you put a battery in it. Nothing fancy. You don't get super fancy remotes anymore with flagship receivers because most people are buying universal remotes anyways. So why add the cost to the receiver by putting another remote that you may not use? So here you have the Odyssey microphone. This model comes with Odyssey XT32, so you could do an 8-point calibration.
They're liking it.
And I'm not a huge fan of auto EQ, but Odyssey is one of the better ones on the market. And the thing that I really like is they give you a real microphone. As you can see, there's some depth to this microphone. So it is actually accurate to do bass calibration. Unlike I have a competitor's microphone here, and I'm not trying to put anyone on the spot, I'm just trying to state fact. The Yamaha microphone that comes with all their Avantage receivers and processors, it's this little flat disc. It's not effective for bass correction. And when you looked at our CXA 5100 review, I basically showed that it didn't do anything below 60 hertz. That's not the case with Odyssey. Odyssey actually corrects down to 20 hertz. And what is making Odyssey more attractive now is the fact that they've recently come out with their Odyssey Editor App. So you could download this app on your iPhone or on your Android. I think it's about 20 bucks. And after you run the calibration of Odyssey, you could go in and actually edit the curves. So if you're a Sharpie and you have a measurement system and you want to measure, your speakers with and without correction, you can go in and kind of tailor the sound, make some corrections that maybe Odyssey didn't do a good job of. Typically, I like to limit room correction for bass frequencies only, below about 500 hertz, because high frequency correction is really kind of a hard thing to do. It's hard to separate the room from the speaker at high frequencies, whereas at low frequencies, the room is a dominant factor of bass, more so than the speaker itself. So it's much easier to do auto equalization for bass than it is for high frequencies.
We have a few hellos from Albuquerque, and we also have a question about what's the biggest deal to upgrade to this receiver than the Yamaha?
Well, I mean, Yamaha just announced their 80 series, so they have the 3080 receiver, and that's got some pretty cool features. We're going to be going over that in a separate video. I think what you're going to get from this receiver that you don't get in the Yamaha, first of all, the Yamaha's flagship only has 9 channels of amplification, so you have to actually add a 2-channel amplifier to do 11 channels, all built into one box. This has 11 channels in it, 140 watts times 11. That's full bandwidth rating. I know that Marantz says it's 205 watts, but that's actually a 1-channel rating at 1% distortion. We try to be more conservative and try to rate the old FTC way. So the similar power that you'll get on the Yamaha as you will on the Marantz, but I do want to go a little bit more over about the power later. But basically, when you get into this level of receiver, whether it's a Yamaha, Pioneer, or Marantz, you're getting very similar kind of feature sets. Everybody has their own music management systems. Yamaha's got MusicCast, Dan and Marantz has HEOS. So it depends on which, which network you want to go into.
Great. Well, we have some hellos from Chris Wilson from Philadelphia, Albuquerque, and Ronald really likes your shirt.
Oh, thanks.
So
got it in South
I
America.
know it's not audio related, but we gotta look good.
Cool. Okay.
We have some Marantz owners here as well. Hello, Paul. How are you? Ronald just bought the same AVR just last week, and some people are wondering the Emotiva new AVR versus this new Marantz that's coming.
Well, the Emotive is vaporware right now, so we can't really comment on that. So let's go with what's actually out there, and we'll figure that out
Definitely, yeah.
sometime down in the future.
Yeah, a few hellos from Chavan, from Tyler, Texas, and Tyler's also saying hello, Gene. Atlanta, we have a lot of people from Georgia here. Montreal.
Yeah, we're global. Audioholics is global. So I wanted to show you this little accessory kit. It kind of looks like something you would do with a model rocket, as you can see here. But it's just, if you don't have a microphone stand, I guess you could use this. You put it on some type of solid surface. The idea when you're doing room correction is you want the microphone to be at seated ear level position. You don't want to have any obstructions. You don't want to have a back of a couch or anything kind of interfering with the microphone. I recommend getting a real microphone stand, but if you're in a pinch and you have a little tabletop you want to put it on, this comes in handy.
They're asking about the Auro 3D, Michael. He wants to know if you're going to be able to try to use the setup for Auro 3D.
Well, I've got Auro 3D music disc. The only problem is I will not have a speaker layout that supports Auro, because you need to have the ear level layer and the high level layer. And what we're doing in this setup is we're doing a 5.1.4 and then using the extra 2 channels for another zone. Now you could do 11 channels and have an Auro 3D kind of configuration, but you got to kind of figure out if you're going to want to do front and rear heights or if you're going to want to do in-ceiling speakers. The only kind of speakers we don't recommend when you're doing immersive surround sound is the bouncy house Atmos. We're not into that. That's a last resort. Please try to install in-ceiling speakers or try to install speakers high up on the wall, like kind of like we have here. And that would be a much better option for you than using the bouncy house. But I will do the Auro 3D processing at least for 7.1 or 5.1.4 and let you guys know how that works.
About from Michael Lee, which has a better Android control between the Yamaha and the Marantz, in your opinion?
Well, it's been a while since I've messed with the app for Denon and Marantz on a phone. I have to tell you, I just recently started using the Yamaha one again with the 5100. That's something I'll take a closer look at because it's been a few years since I've opened up a Denon and Marantz app. So I'm sure it's good. I've heard a lot of good things about it, and I'm particularly interested in testing out the Odyssey Editor App.
Good. We have a few more hellos from Greece. Kostas, thank you for tuning in. And MR9 loves your video, Gene. Keep them coming.
Awesome.
And
So-
Gene's the man.
The other thing I wanted to tell you I like is they give you a detachable power cord. I can't stand when you get a receiver and it has a fixed power cord, so it just makes it harder to install. You know, it's a 2-prong.
If you had to pick from the 9 and Marantz, what would you choose right now?
Well, this receiver, I haven't gotten it out of the box yet, but this receiver, to my closest recollection, is its base model is similar to the Denon 6400H, which is another 11.2 channel AV receiver. It retails for about $2,200. I think what Marantz did here though is they took that platform and they've upgraded the power. They put a much bigger power supply in here, bigger heatsink area, so it's just a much higher build quality. They have the HDAM preamp circuitry, so it's more of an audiophile receiver, kind of like how Marantz's heritage is formed, you know, back when in the 50s and 60s. So I think if you're choosing between Denon and Marantz, it really depends on which model, because Denon now has their 8500, which is a 13.2 channel receiver that's $4,000. So if you need the extra processing and you could actually use all those speakers and you have the extra $1,000, then obviously go with the Denon model. But I really like this model because most people aren't going to go beyond 9 or 11 speakers. And I like the fact that this is audio focused. And the price is pretty reasonable at only $3,000. So that's, you know, years ago, all the super receivers used to be $5 or $6 grand. You're getting kind of a glimmer of that kind of audiophile, kind of throwback to the vintage 2005 era of receivers in this SR8012, but with modern codecs and modern video processing and all that.
We have some hellos from Australia. Thank you for tuning in, Droid.
So I'm going to take this out of the box now because I've been talking too much.
That's great. Hello from Paul, Gene. Keep the videos coming.
All right, I will. Okay.
Here's nicely packaged.
So what I'll do is I'll just pop this out. It's a little heavy. It's got some weight to it. It's about 40 pounds. assistant helped. Thank you, Bertha.
You're very welcome, Jean.
Let's forward.
Anything to help.
Let's go forward first.
Just to say, guys, I am the wife, and I do love what he does, and I love speakers, believe it or not.
So there is a wife acceptance factor that's really high. Make sure when you get married, you condition your significant other on high wife acceptance or spousal acceptance factor when it comes to audio.
Awesome. Hey, Tyler, how are you? He wants to know how much the receiver is.
$3,000 retail.
Not bad.
So let's get a little overview here. Marantz has that little porthole like they've had in their receivers for the last few years. Kind of looks really neat. Not a busy front panel like you see with some of the other receivers. That's really good, especially when you're in low light rooms. You don't want this thing shining at you with a bunch of LEDs.
As for a 40-pounder.
Yeah, it is. So you have, you know, some of the connections here. This is where you plug in your microphone. You have an extra HDMI, USB. You've got actually 8 HDMI inputs, 3 HDMI outputs, version 2.0, HDCP 2.2, does your 4K. It's everything that's currently modern with UHD this receiver supports. And I want to show you if you can get, you probably can't get a good angle on it with the camera here, but inside this receiver, and this is the only Marantz receiver currently using a giant toroid transformer, and it's shielded. You can see it as a big power supply. It looks like it's about a 5-inch diameter with the cup on it. It's got a monolithic symmetric amplifier layout, so each of the channels are in a monoblock kind of configuration. Big heat sinks on the back, extruded aluminum heat sinks.
With the channel separation, Droy wants to know if will it do a separate 2-channel sub.
Well, actually, there's 2 subwoofer outputs on this, and that's what I really love about Denon and Marantz products. When you spend over about $1,000 and higher, a lot of receivers will just give you a parallel subwoofer output, so you can't control your delays and your channel trims independently. On this model, you can, which makes it very useful when you're doing subwoofer calibration and you're trying to integrate multi-sub. I really love that. That's going to really help out in this room because we're running 2 JL Audio E112 subwoofers. So I'm going to be able to time align each of my subwoofers to get the best integration between themselves and between all of the speakers in the room at the crossover point.
So does it do 140 watt continuous all channels driven?
I don't know about all channels driven, and most receivers can't do all channels driven because you're restricted to 1 power supply and 1 power cord, especially 11 channels. You don't have enough power in a single outlet to do 140 times 11 and a 15 amp breaker. But that said, this is very conservatively rated at 140 watts, at least with 2 channels driven. I looked at the distortion specs on this model versus the Denon model, the 6400. And this looks like it's just got more output, even though they rated kind of similarly. If you look at the way they're rating the 1-channel driven, the Marantz one definitely has more headroom. I'm sure that's going to show up when I do the audio precision testing. I would guesstimate this thing is probably can do an honest 7 channels driven, close to the 140 watt rating, because it's got a really hefty power supply. But you don't need that much power for 11 channels. The Atmos channels themselves in the ceiling, they don't use a lot of power. You're talking about using a little 6.5-inch 2-way coaxial speaker. 50 or 60 watts is more than adequate for the effects channels.
Great. We see here some more people coming in. Hello, Jose from Puerto Rico. We miss you, Jose.
All right, Jose's here.
Yes, we do. And we have a lot of other people here that are making their wives happy, and they're happy with their wives with speakers as long as they buy them shoes.
So
a good
I guess the question I have for you guys, if you have this receiver, what kind of a speaker layout are you going to do? Because you could do 7.1.4, so that's 7 bed channels or ear level channels, and then 4 height channels. Or you could do 5.1.4, or you could do 7.1. There's so many different configurations that you could do with this receiver. I'm kind of curious to see what you guys are running. If you're getting into immersive audio, give us some comments, because I'd always like to see that. I like to get a sampling of what our
Well,
readers and
Ronald
listeners
is
are doing.
interested in doing some mercy, but also he wants to know if they're gonna upgrade the HDMI board to 2.1 like the 8805.
No, this is not upgradable to 2.1, unfortunately. I don't think that's really much of a concern. I think we're at a point now where we're just getting into 4K UHD. There's not a whole lot of content. There's not a whole lot of streaming services that are even doing 4K. I think you're years away from even that being a concern. But, you know, if you are that type that thinks you want to have the long-term solution and you want the extra muscle of more channels and more processing, then you're welcome to go up to the Denon 8500. I think that's a great choice. Very similar platform to this. It's just the newer version with more channels and more processing.
Yeah, I think it's 13 channels if I remember.
13.2. So let me show you the back of this. Actually, let me show you the underside first. I do like this copper chassis you get. No, I don't think you get that with the Denon models. I don't remember Denon having this. This is similar to what I have with the PM11S3 integrated amplifier that I use in my 2-channel system. It's just a nice touch, you know, a little bit better shielding perhaps while they use the copper, or it's just even aesthetically it's nice. And the other thing I like about Denon and Marantz receivers is when you spend more than $2,000 on either of their receivers, these guys are made at the same factory that the venerable AVR 5805 was made. That's my favorite receiver of all time. That 100-pound monstrosity, that 10.1 channel that did 2 separate surround zones independently and simultaneously. There's never been a better receiver than the 5805 in my opinion. This is made at the same factory as that receiver, and that kind of warms my heart as an audiophile because I love that receiver, and that was one of the hardest things that I had to get rid of because it just wasn't upgradable to the latest codecs that we have here.
That's great. Well, we have a few people here that use Klipsch speakers. They have a 7.2.4 using the Klipsch reference and the Yamaha RX. They want to upgrade to Atmos eventually.
Well, Klipsch are very efficient speakers. This will have plenty of power to drive all those channels with no problem.
Well, let's get a glimpse of the back here, guys.
Yeah, so like I said, there's 7 HDMI inputs on the back. There's 1 extra one on the front. And you still have legacy video. You've got component video and composite video. They've dropped S-Video recently in these receivers, as did Yamaha and many of the other major brands. S-Video is gone. We don't need it anymore anyways. And the other thing this receiver has is has Alexa integration. So if you are running an Alexa platform at your house, this will allow you to control your inputs and your volume, if that's what you want to do, if you want to have a little smart home integration. It does have Denon HEOS built in, so you could do your music management through that cloud as well. And it does all your major streaming. It supports AirPlay, Tidal, Deezer, Spotify. You could stream to your heart's content. I have a network drive set up in my own house with a 4 terabyte drive with tons of music on it, and I stream through all my systems. This will allow you to do that as well. It's got Ethernet and it's got wireless. I prefer using Ethernet when you can. It's just a more reliable connection.
This is great. And you can see here, made in Japan.
Yeah, made in Japan. That's great. We back?
We are back now. Not sure what happened.
Oh, you gotta love wireless connections. Anyways, do you guys have any other questions you want to ask before I bring this thing upstairs and start doing some bench tests on it? Let me know. Give me some feedback now or forever hold your peace.
Let's see for the comments we have. They think it was gonna go great with their i7 HTPC. They have some Infinity speakers running with the Marantz SR7010. They wanna maybe upgrade.
Yeah, that was a good receiver. It's you know, the new generation, the 7012 replaced that. The 7012 is similar to the 8012, except with the 8012 you do get 2 more channels of amplification. You get that bigger power supply, just some bigger audiophile upgrades. So it's like comparing a double burger to a double cheeseburger with all your trims and fixins on it.
Perfect. Some people are wondering if the Klipsch or Paradigm will run better match with the Marantz.
Compared to what? I think this receiver is going to do well for the majority of speakers, especially if you bass manage your speakers and you run multi-sub, like we always tell people. Running multi-sub, running a bass management on your speakers saves power in your receiver. Your speakers aren't trying to produce the bass, which robs a lot of power. You allow the subs to do that, which do a better job anyways, and this will definitely get you where you need to be.
Perfect. See if we have a few more questions. What do you think about Onkyo?
I think Akio's come a long way, especially since the merger with Pioneer. I think their stuff looks really compelling now, especially with the D3 amplifiers. those are the better generation of Class Ds than they were using initially with the ICE modules that didn't do that well in 4 ohms. I have not tested the latest of their receivers, but it is something we will look at in the future because they look to be offering some good value.
Good, and we have one last question here. It's from the tech guy. Thank you for tuning in. What separate amplifier are you going to run with the Marantz?
I'm actually running this on its own because it has 11 channels of amplification, and I'm actually only using 9 channels for speaker configuration. I'm going to use the other 2 channels for another zone. So I didn't plan on doing any external amplification, but I will check the preamp outputs to make sure that it's sufficient to drive external amplification, because we found several budget receivers in the past, they don't have good preamp outputs. They clip at a little over a volt, or they're just noisy. Historically, the Marantzes I've tested have been really good on the preamp outputs, and that's one of the upgrades you get going from Denon to the Marantz, is you get the HDAM modules, the preamp modules. So I'm expecting this to have a really clean preamp out. So if you find that this amplifier is not powerful enough for your speakers, of course you can run external amplification. You know, there's some great amps on the fly that are cheap now, like from Monoprice, the ATI-based amplifiers that are really good. You can run that, and then you can use the unused amplifiers here, reassign them to another zone, or just add more speakers or whatever you want to do with them, or just let them go idle.
That's great. Thank you, Gene.
All right. Well, guys, I think we're going to wrap it up for now. I got some testing to do, and we will be back. I'm going to be doing a very extensive video review, a formal video review, teaching you guys how to set this thing up to get the most out of it. So please, if you like this video, hit the thumb up on it, share it. Please comment after the fact. I'll go in and I'll answer some of your questions if you forgot to ask me anything. And as I learn more about this receiver, I'll definitely be filling in the gaps for you. And guys, until next time, keep listening.